The little things are important, Jimmy. It's the little things that get you caught. No, this is not a PSA from Denzel about cheating. It's a quote from his new film, The Little Things, streaming exclusively on HBO Max, as well as in theaters. This movie is receiving a lot of backlash online, so it doesn't surprise me that I relatively enjoyed it. Form your own opinions, folks, that's all I'm gonna say. Before I get started with my initial review, DJ, hit that intro.
You said bullshit and experience is all it takes, right?
Right.
Come on and experience some of my bullshit.
Real Shift, to me, is about changing the culture around movie criticism. You don't have to like something in order to respect it.
You son of a bitch.
It's all for the love of movies. I'd like to dedicate this to everyone who's been down with the channel since day one.
It's showtime.
The Little Things is a new crime thriller starring Denzel Washington, Gerard, Leto, and Rami Malek. It features a aging small-town cop played by Denzel Washington who has to return to his former town. While there, he helps another detective played by Rami Malek solve an ongoing serial killer investigation that is very similar to one from his past. First and foremost, I'm gonna put it right out there, this movie is about atmosphere and characters. It's a slow burn for sure, and it has a David Fincher-esque feel to it. Now, it's not quite as polished as a David Fincher film, especially the final act, which will remind you of Seven when you watch it, but more on that in a minute.
What's in the box?
I think this film's biggest W goes to the acting, and when you have a starting three like this, that's not all that surprising. Even Leto, who is hit or miss for me sometimes because he does try a little bit too hard with his roles. He doesn't have a lot of screen time in this movie, but when he does, I think he's very creepy and very effective. Again, not to compare to Seven, but his character does have a very John Doe feel to him. I read a story where Denzel was interviewed and he said that Leto didn't really try any of his method acting shenanigans with him. He said if he did, he would most likely have to have a sit down with him. Denzel is such a G.
You motherfuckers will be playing basketball in Pelican Bay when I get finished with you.
Speaking of Denzel, I found his initial mild-mannered, graying, out-of-shape detective character to be a nice change of pace for him. Normally when we see Denzel play a cop, he's very brash, he's very charismatic. In this role, he's much more reserved, at least initially. It actually reminded me of a character that I had in a movie idea of my own, and I actually had Denzel in mind for that role, which is kind of weird for me, but also kind of cool. His character does have some complexity in this movie. He does have a dark side. He's very obsessive and he gets sucked into this new case that's similar to a case that he once worked that caused him to have some kind of breakdown while on the job.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
His unstable nature is slowly revealed throughout the course of the movie, the deeper and more invested he gets in this case. There's one scene where he's laying in the hotel room and he actually sees the victim standing in the room with him. It's very creepy, and it also has a bit of a double meaning because we come to find out later that Denzel actually made a very huge mistake while working that case in the past. So on top of him being obsessive, it's revealed that his breakdown had a lot to do with his guilt about what happened. Thankfully, his great detective skills were preserved even after his breakdown, and we get to see him use them in full effect throughout the course of the film. He sees what a lot of other cops don't see, and that has a lot to do with one, his experience, and two, just his unstable nature. He kind of thinks like a serial killer in some scenes, which makes sense if you're trying to catch one.
That makes sense.
I mean, he basically uses a broken refrigerator in one of the victim's apartments and uses that to somehow figure out a possible suspect. There's another moment where he puts himself in the shoes of the victims and he actually talks to their dead bodies, which, by the way, I thought was one of the best acted scenes in the whole movie. Rami Malek's character was probably the least interesting to me, and it has nothing to do with his performance. Rami is a great actor. His character arc just felt a bit clunky to me and a bit rushed. It just felt like they didn't spend enough time turning him into the character that he becomes by the end of the film. Plus, I can't help it, but I just keep seeing Freddie Mercury solving crimes.
Well, I'm terribly sorry, dear. It's done.
That's not his fault, that's just what I'm seeing in my head. But his character becomes obsessive as well, and this leads to desperation when he's convinced that Leto is the killer, but he just can't prove it.
Hey, listen, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
So he takes these drastic measures at the end of the film, and it causes him to slip up and cross a line. Denzel's character can sympathize with him because he knows what it's like to make a mistake. I have to admit the ending does feel a bit anticlimactic, and it did drag on a bit too long for me. It really did feel like a slightly more rushed version of Seven. Plus, I think there's a question of whether or not Leto's character actually did these crimes. Just because he has newspaper clippings hidden under his floorboards doesn't make him a serial killer. And it's even stated that he once confessed to something that he didn't do just for the thrills. So those two things combined lead me to believe that he could have just been toying with everyone. It's kind of left open to interpretation, but I kind of dig that about it as well. The final act probably is my biggest complaint about this movie. However, it is kind of interesting seeing these two cops accepting what happened and just being on the opposite side of things by the end of the film. That one rule, again, comes full circle and back into play. The little things are what get you caught. Overall, I have to say I actually enjoyed the little things.
Rule number 32. Enjoy the little things.
It's not perfect, it has its flaws, it's a bit clunky and rushed in certain spots. I thought it did feature good performances and a nice creepy atmosphere. It's a slow burn cat and mouse type story, which is something that typically interests me. I will probably watch this movie again, and for that reason, I'm going to give it the Pleased Palpatine.
Good.
So have you seen The Little Things? Let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. As always, please like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time right here on Real Shift. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Y'all be cool. Right on.